China has continued to wage an all-out war against the coronavirus in October, enforcing tough regulations despite the harm it was causing to the economy. After 2 months, the government has completely changed its mind about its zero-COVID policy. As a result, hospitals and cemeteries are overcrowded. Millions of people are expected to contract the virus and millions more are expected to die from it. 3 years after the virus outbreak was originally revealed, China is once more in the grip of the grave warning. Again, the situation has worsened in China. We have reported this. Ambassador Goel, when it comes to China at this point of time and the handling of the coronavirus outbreak, it has not been very fruitful in their case, because in one hand, there are people dying, and it's forecasted that million more will be dying by the upcoming May 2023. And one side where China is putting strict restrictions, there are protests breaking out, and it is a chaos in China. How do you react to this?
From all information that is now filtering through, it is clear that in the process to basically restrict or keep a control over the spread of corona to the populations and the zero COVID policy China has adopted, rather than limiting the spread of corona, it was basically keeping them into the small pockets where the population has been affected. And their vaccination program had been so ineffective that most of the people, they had not even had the second dose by now. So as soon as China has begun to ease the COVID restrictions, it was actually expected even earlier that a large part of population is going to be affected by COVID. And today, in fact, I was seeing some images in the hospitals where they seem not to have place in the hospital, in the wards, for more patients coming in. They were lying on the floor. There is a report saying that within 90 days, about 60% of the population in China will be affected by COVID within 90 days. It's going to be more like a mega bomb, really, explosion of COVID. So China is in for very difficult times. I do not know whether they will be able to handle the emergency effectively or not, or whether they will go back to zero COVID. These are going to be challenges. I would see that besides Chinese challenges, we will need to be also careful that once it begins to spread in China, it's a neighboring country, that we remain insulated, or we try and insulate the COVID effect coming into India from China. If you remember earlier also, COVID actually started from China, and India will be immediately affected if it begins to come into India. So we need to be very careful. I do not know whether it is time to also look at the travel restrictions again, but it's a very critical issue for China and also for India.
Right. Mrs. Srivastava, when it comes to China, it could report over 1 million deaths by 2023. And the warning is not just for China. As Ambassador Goel said, even India needs to be alert about this matter. Do you think it's time that we put restrictions on travel, and also people should start wearing masks in India?
It's a very unfortunate, situation which is developing in China, and Chinese people are suffering. It's a very, very unfortunate situation, but it raises a lot of questions also. It raises the questions about how effective Chinese vaccines are, and also the vaccination drive which has been carried out in China. I think there have been a lot of reports that it has not been done properly. Many of the people have not been given, a second dose, especially the elderly people, those who are above 80. I think there are reports that they are not being given any kind of a care. So I think it raises questions about the effectiveness of Chinese vaccine as well as the vaccination drive. And I think it's a very serious situation developing out there. But the solution of this, dealing with this crisis is not the zero COVID barbaric policies which the Chinese administration had adopted. And I think it's high time that the World Health Organization, WHO, international community and obviously our country, India, we have to have a very close watch on the developments in China with regard to COVID pandemic, and accordingly the measures should be taken so that it does not cross boundaries, it does not come to our country or it reaches to other countries. But I think it's a high, it's responsibility primarily of the World Health Organization to take a very close, watch on what's happening out there, and to alarm the rest of the international community and what to do in such a situation. If it crosses boundary, it comes out with the same seriousness to elsewhere. I think international community must be alarmed and cautious. And as you asked a question about India, of course we should wear masks. I personally wear masks whenever I go out still, despite easing out of all restrictions. And I think wearing mask is a mandatory thing, and we must follow it. And also the kind of concerning news is developing, arising out of China, should also be a reason to wear masks. Again, those who are not wearing it properly, I think they must wear whenever they move out. So I think all care, caution should be kept while moving out, and that's a mandatory thing. It should be. And the post-corona world is a different world, I know. And one of the changes which has come in our lives is that wearing mask has become a kind of a routine affair. Personally, as I said, I follow it and very, very carefully, and so I think everyone should do that. And but as I said, that developments in China should be watched very closely, and accordingly the measures should be taken. I think our government of India must be watching it quite closely, and if requires travel restrictions, if it is required to be done, I think it should be imposed. And because the situation and news which is coming out from China is very, very concerning news. Very serious developments are taking place with regard to COVID pandemic.
Right, Ambassador Goel, when it comes to ramping up of healthcare facilities, China's health department is also announcing that they are going to ramp up ventilator supports, and they are going to build up stocks for vaccination. But talking about vaccination in particular, the Chinese vaccine, we don't know how effective they are for their citizens, and the China's vaccination situation is also quite grim at this point of time.
Absolutely. Do you remember that, in fact, initially when China had developed their own vaccine, and Moderna was producing this vaccine, and before that this company in Pune had begun to really supply the vaccine to people here. And there was a lot of hue and cry, and there was a lot of questioning of WHO on their system in allowing the Chinese vaccine to go into the international market. But they actually was not giving clearance to the Indian vaccine for a long time to come. And there were questions on what WHO actually credentials were and how they were doing it, and now it is actually proved that our vaccine was far more effective as compared to the Chinese vaccine. Therefore, it's very clear that China will have to import vaccine from the other countries. Whether they will come to India or not is still a moot question. But they will have to import. But the real thing is that even if they import large number of vaccine, and even if they import ventilators at the rate which COVID is now going in China, would they be able to build up sufficient facilities to treat all the people who fall sick? That is doubtful. If you recall again what happened in India during the second phase of COVID, it was a grim situation because whatever facilities we had, they fell short the way the infection grew. So all said and done, they may be taking precautions, they may be building up the supply, they may be building the stocks, but it is going to be a difficult situation.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.